Games rated E to M. Welcome to Nintendo Power Podcast. This episode, we discuss cool games coming this fall and beyond. My name is Chris Slate. Joining me today are Camille Van Duyn from Strategic Communications. Hi, Camille.
Hey, Chris. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show. And Kirk Scott from the Publisher and Developer Relations team. Hi, Kirk.
Hello there.
And also Vince Chon, who's also from the Publisher and Developers Relations team.
Hey, Chris. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Oh, I'm very excited to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, and I'm excited because we've got a lot to go over in this episode. Actually, a lot has happened since the last episode of this show. There was a lot of new announcements, a lot of surprises. So we're going to jump right into it. First, we're going to talk about all of these recent announcements. Again, starting with the Indies video showcase that happened at the end of August. Now, Kirk, as you were actually a part of that video presentation, and I believe you described yourself as the friendly neighborhood indie guy. So let's start with you. What were your big takeaways from that presentation?
Thank you. So one of my big takeaways is the fact that, the indie developer community is really, really blessed us and really come strong to the Switch. We're really excited about that and really thankful.
Yeah, it's been amazing. We talk about it, every month here on the show, just how much great content we're seeing from our indie developers.
Yeah, we had great collaboration with our Nintendo of Europe partners as well. They released a video like the week before we did. And then during the week of PAX, we released our video, and it was just a ton of great content. We had so much content that we split it up into 2 videos. So we're really happy to just kind of bring all of that to the fans, and got really good response from it.
Yeah, and I've got a few favorites here that have kind of come out recently that I think were featured in some of those presentations. And just to kick things off, I'll start with Undertale, which obviously is a phenomenon and is a game that my son actually has already beaten. And I've kind of watched him play a lot of it on other platforms. And now I'm finally able to start here on Nintendo Switch and kind of start playing through my own path through the game. I'm trying to take the pacifist route, which is a little challenging at times, but it's just a lot of fun and a very, very funny game, very touching game so far as well.
How is your route different from your kids?
Well, I think when he went through it, he was kind of just taking more of a neutral route. I mean, sometimes he would, be able to get out of combat without, fighting, and sometimes he would. I'm being meticulously careful. Like, if I even think that I may have insulted the other guy during the combat sequence, I'm backing out and restarting.
A hard reset.
Yeah, I do not want to get to the end of the game and find out I took a wrong turn somewhere.
That's
awesome.
So great.
Yeah. So what else jumped out? What other games jumped out to you guys?
Well, I think for me, I was up at PAX and had the opportunity to play some of these games. And I'm always wowed by what the indie developers bring to the table. But one of my particular favorites was King of the Hat. And I know Kirk and I had some vicious matches in that game. But for those who aren't familiar, it's kind of a beat-em-up, frenetic fighting style game. Has a little bit of elements of Super Smash Brothers and Tower Fall, if people have played that before, but very colorful and fun, and some unique characters, including a washing machine, which stomped on my head more than a few times.
I believe I was the washing machine in that instance, in most instances.
I believe you may have been.
That's awesome. I need to find out more about this game. Anything that sounds that wacky is right up my alley.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about indies too, is the originality of all of the content and the passion that goes into each of the games is very unique. So you get these passion projects, and they're all wacky and fun to play.
I will say one not as wacky, but something that I loved sinking my teeth into was Into the Breach.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, that surprise reveal.
Yes.
It made a lot of fans happy, but just I'm a huge strategy RPG guy, and I love to tinker with my unit stats and all that. So this was like just perfect for Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, a lot of people were happy that we actually launched that on the day of the Nindy Summer release that we did. So that was great.
Yeah, you've got to love those instant releases. Just when you get excited for something, no waiting.
Right.
And really quick from me, some other games that I've really been looking forward to is, I think, Camille, you mentioned Tower Fall. Now, I'm a huge fan of Celeste, and these are the same guys that made Towerfall, which actually I think originally came out on other platforms before Celeste, which is kind of, from what I understand, kind of a 4-player, I think in the Nintendo Switch version, even up to 6 players, kind of, I wouldn't say Smash Brothers style, but, you're looking, it's side on, you're looking at it, and you're all kind of going after each other. Actually, I'm sure, Kirk, you can probably describe it a lot better than I just did.
Yeah, and actually, the developer, Matt Makes Games, was nice enough to include not only 6-player on Switch, but they included Madeline and Badeline from
That's right.
From Celeste. So that was a really cool nod to fans of Celeste on the platform. It's 6 players, limited ammo, and it's just crazy, and it's a lot of fun. And, I think it was a great thing for people coming to PAX to be able to play that, because it's kind of a nod to, fans of PAX. So it was really cool to see.
Having played a ton of Towerfall, I will say also, in addition to the 6 players, having those widescreen levels was a game changer.
Yeah, really cool.
Just really utilizing the full screen. And definitely going from 4-player to 6-player really increases that mayhem, and it's just a ton of fun.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, and I'm also looking forward to a game that I've seen a lot of people talking about online, which is Untitled Goose Game.
Oh, the goose is loose.
The goose is loose.
Goose is loose. That just looks amazing. You're basically just a jerk goose who wanders around making life difficult for people.
Yes, and it's a blast. And there's so many different outcomes from this game. One of your goals in the game, for instance, is get the gardener wet. And in order to get him wet, you basically have to get water on him, right? But there's so many different ways to actually do that in the game that it makes it a really cool sandbox experience from the perspective of a goose.
Finally, we can get a goose's perspective.
Yes.
And I should say that game, I think, was announced as coming out early 2019, and Towerfall is actually probably going to be hitting right around the same time this episode comes out. So we're not going to have to wait too long for either of those.
That's right.
And then I also thought, if I'm saying this right, Miniko's Night Market, another game for early 2019, is another one that stood out for a lot of people in that presentation.
Yeah, graphically, that game really delivers, and it really kind of delivers on that style of game. I think people are really excited about it, and that's coming 2019, I think, as well. So that'll be great. Fun for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Now, one last one from me is Hyper Light Drifter Special Edition, which just came out, and this is another game I've been meaning to get to, and now that it's on Nintendo Switch, I finally started playing. And it's one of those things where there's not a lot of setup, initially, and you kind of start to get into the game, and you start to get a sense for this world that I don't know how to describe it any better than to say that, without telling you specifically a lot of the story, you start to get hints of maybe what's happened in this world. And even though I haven't gotten too far into it already, I can tell that there's a lot here to unravel.
Yeah, they do a really good job at giving you graphical descriptions of what the character interprets as what may have happened. Is the best way to describe that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they do a really good job at that. The art style is beautiful, and it's one of the games that all along through the Switch lifespan, everyone has been asking for it. Diehard fans have really been begging for this, and now that we have official Game Maker support for Switch, it was one of the first titles that was identified that must have for Switch users. So we're really happy to have them on board.
Yeah, it really is. You've already got kind of a best of the best collection, I think, of some of these like legendary indie titles. And just when you think, you've got 2 or 3 new ones you want to try out, all of a sudden there's like 2 or 3 other ones coming out. So it can be tough to keep up sometimes.
Yes. I'm having a lot of fun, but I don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, well, that's a good problem to have, I suppose.
That's right.
Now, before we move on from the Indies presentation, anything else we should cover from that?
Oh gosh, just keep an eye out for the games coming. If you don't remember, you just mentioned Hyper Light Drifter Special Edition was released. Bastion just released. Undertale just released. There's a lot of games from that showcase that are either coming soon or in 2019. So keep an eye out for those. And it's just a lot of every week in the eShop. I love going in there on Thursdays on my Switch and just kind of perusing all the cool games that are coming soon or available now. And every week even I'm surprised at what's in there. So I kind of make it I set an appointment to kind of check out the eShop every Thursday morning. It's fun.
Yeah. I tend to just pop into the eShop every couple of days when I'm sitting after I've maybe finished a play session, and I just pop in there and check out the recent games and just see if anything popped out that I wasn't aware released. That's how I keep up with it.
Yeah, and like a game like Gardens Between that released last week, I was in the eShop and I was like, wow, I forgot this thing is out today. Amazing. I'm going to grab it. And it's just a beautiful game, and it's based on time manipulation, and it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, now moving on to the Nintendo Direct, which hit on September 13th. Right out of the gate, we had Luigi's Mansion 3 announced, which totally took me by surprise. I think took a lot of people by surprise. It was fun seeing a lot of the reactions online. I think people, when they first saw Luigi poke his head through the door, just assumed this was the Luigi's Mansion remake for Nintendo 3DS that had been announced a while ago. And suddenly people are like, wait a minute, that looks a little too good, or this looks a little bit different. And then finally the reveal of the logo, and everybody loses their minds. So what did you guys think when when that game was first announced?
Oh my gosh. I know Animal Crossing is the thing most people take away from the Direct and what a lot of people are really excited about. But for me, Luigi's Mansion has to be my number one. I about fell out of my chair when I saw that, and personally have always identified a little bit with Luigi. I feel like I'm kind of awkward and tall, and I'm a big scaredy cat. And to see him coming back in this awesome role and going on a new ghost hunt, oh my gosh, I am so darn excited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, just what you said earlier about kind of faking the viewers out totally got me thinking, oh, this is going to be potentially a remake, and to find out it was a true kind of, next in the series, it was awesome. I mean, I had so much fun playing Dark Moon and all that, and this is trying to... I have a lot of games to play on the queue here, but that's definitely one I'm willing to clear it up for.
One thing I thought was really neat was that if you go back in hindsight now and look at the reveal trailer for Simon Belmont in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, that Luigi played a big role in that trailer. And you can see in that one that he has the new Poltergust backpack on, and he also is shooting plungers, which is something you can see in the trailer for Luigi's Mansion 3. So a little bit of an early hint there if people were paying attention.
Oh, totally.
Killer foreshadowing.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Then we moved on to, or not necessarily, I guess these weren't necessarily in the right order, but another big announcement from the Nintendo Direct was New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, which is coming out January 11th. This was really cool to see because, Mario is probably my favorite video game series, and Nintendo Switch doesn't have a side-scrolling Mario game yet. So it's great to see that that's going to be remedied there. And, I really like this version in particular of all the new Super Mario Brothers games. I thought New Super Mario Bros. U is my favorite. I just really love the levels. And also when you add in all of that content from New Super Luigi U, I think it was called, like I say, you get 164 total courses, plus all of the new stuff like Nabbit and Toadette are now playable characters, especially characters that can help maybe younger players or less experienced players. Nabbit in particular, I think, can't even really be hurt. And then I've seen a lot of discussion about the Super Crown that will turn Toadette into Peachette, which is a brand new addition to the series. So a lot there to really dig into.
I think we got a new Halloween costume idea there in Peachette this year.
Yeah.
I'll be excited to see how many of those are walking around.
Yeah. Hopefully Peachette makes it into some of the other Mario spin-off titles, sports titles, things like that in the future.
Yeah, it's funny how, even as a Nintendo employee with the Directs, I'm always excited and I'm always surprised. And it's just really cool to see the smiles around the office of people that are really excited about what's coming. It's kind of neat. Like when you just mentioned Peachette, I think everyone on your side smiled, and I definitely know that we smiled. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah. Even when you're getting something like a game that was on a previous platform, you're still going to get something unexpected.
Yes.
Just to see all of the conspiracy articles and stuff purely around Peachette is pretty funny, I will say. It's awesome.
People are so obsessed. How does Peachette work in the lore of the Mario universe? Which honestly, I'm not quite sure lore has ever been something associated with the Mario games. But yeah, it's fun to talk about. Now, another game that really surprised me in this Nintendo Direct was Town. That's the working title for the new RPG coming from Game Freak, who, of course, famously makes the Pokemon title. So, wow, out of nowhere, I thought it had really cool graphics, really interesting kind of setup where it all takes place in this one town. And, that was just the definition of a tease. I really can't wait to find a lot more about this game.
Yeah, that one caught me by surprise for sure. And I know, as you said, Chris, most of us associate Game Freak with Pokemon, but if you think about some of the other great, surprising titles they've had on recent platforms, Pocket Card Jockey was one of my favorites on the 3DS.
Yes.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Town brings to the table.
All the way back to Drill Dozer on Game Boy Advance was another
Drill Dozer.
classic.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So when they kind of step out of there, I mean, obviously everyone's excited for new Pokemon titles, but when they do try something a little bit different, it always ends up being something great.
A lot of character. Their games always have a lot of character.
Yeah, I love the cell shaded art that they kind of put forth, and I was really excited just to see the gameplay. I know it's a very early look, but just to get a kind of a glimpse into what they're planning was really cool.
Absolutely. Then we had Yoshi's Crafted World. We finally got the full name announced for that title. Saw a bit more of the flip mechanics, how you could even play stages backwards. And this is one I got to play for just a little bit, and I really enjoyed the puzzles. And I thought the game, I was a big fan of Yoshi's Woolly World, and I thought that was just oozing with charm. And one of the things that was interesting, having played all of the Yoshi platformers, is, there's always the mechanic where you can kind of aim the egg and kind of throw the egg. But this time, because of the nature of the game, and you can see it in the trailers, you actually have kind of a free aim of the egg, not just, up or down, left or right, into the screen, out of the screen. So you can kind of throw it in any direction. And the way that they incorporate that into all of the different puzzles and ways to open up different paths in the world is really ingenious. So I'm really looking forward to a lot more of that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Yoshi's my guy.
Well, dude, I'm no level designer, but I'm pretty sure when you're flipping levels, it's not as easy as just flipping levels, right? There's a lot of thought that goes into that.
It's going to be incredible. I love Yoshi, so that's all I need to say.
Yeah, definitely a big one to look forward to. And then, Camille, like you said earlier, Animal Crossing was, for most people, the big news. And it didn't come until the very end. You got that little bit of the swerve when Isabelle first appears, and you're thinking, is this a new Animal Crossing? Is this Isabelle in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? What is it? And then just when you think you're only going to get one of those things, you end up getting both, the best of both worlds.
Yeah, the team who created that reveal, the reverse troll is what I call it at the end. I have to say, what an exciting, cool moment. Isabelle in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is something I'm definitely looking forward to experiencing. She's just this angelic, together little lady, and to see her holding no punches, I think was a really, one of the great things about Super Smash Bros. Is you get these matchups that you could never imagine. So I'm looking forward to Isabelle versus Ridley. Isabelle versus Bowser, some of these ridiculous matchups you can only get in Smash Bros.
Yeah, and it's not just about her moveset, right? It's about kind of the personality she brings. She's a very unique character in that way, that she's just like bursting with positivity at the same time bashing other guys' heads in. Oh, so Vince, thinking about what else was in this Nintendo Direct, I understand you're a Final Fantasy guy, so you must have been over the moon about some of these announcements.
Yeah, a little bit. Definitely Final Fantasy, honestly, has been one of the franchises I grew up with. So to see so many, come to a Nintendo platform, for the first time, for a lot of these games, it was really, really cool to work on these. And, I'm actually playing one that just recently launched here, Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition HD. And it's really it's a cool kind of nostalgia trip into some of these legacy games, and it's fantastic to be able to just have it all on my Nintendo Switch and boot it up whenever I want.
For a lot of people like me who've been playing Nintendo games for a long time, I think Final Fantasy VII especially, coming to a Nintendo platform after all this time, because that was the path where up until that point all of the Final Fantasy games had been on Nintendo platforms. So to finally be able to go back to that point and bring those games back, you're looking at 7, 9, 10, 10-2, 12, and bring them back to Nintendo platforms is kind of like, we get to go back to this better alternate history where they always were Nintendo games.
Right.
Totally.
Super exciting.
Yeah, and I'm ecstatic that they, Square Enix, they're able to bring even things like Crystal Chronicles, kind of, fan favorites from, I believe, the GameCube era. That, now that we have the power of technology and online multiplayer, making those barriers even easier for people to play.
Yeah, because back in the day, you needed like several Game Boy Advances connected with several different cables to your Game Boy to have multiplayer. Now you just pop online.
Yeah, I remember having to buy, or not having to, but I bought a couple link cables so my friends and I could all play together. And yeah, it's going to be cool not to have to bring all those again.
All right, Vince, I'm going to put you on the spot though. Out of all those Final Fantasy games that were announced, what's the one you're personally looking forward to the most?
Oh man! All right,
you can only pick one. And we're just going to assume you hate all the other ones.
Well, I know it's a cliche thing to say, you can't really pick your favorite amongst your children. Not that I'm saying that Final Fantasy are my children, but I'm going to lean towards
children, would you say?
My Advent children. Nice. I am going to say I am most looking forward to the 10 and 10-2 compilation.
Mm-hmm. I see what you've done there. You've gone for the 2-for-1.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, 10 is one of my personal favorites in the series. And, granted, I didn't play all of 10-2 to the very end. So I'm excited to get back in and just replay it all.
I had a bad habit back in those days of playing these games like 3/4 of the way through and then moving on to other games before I finish. So I feel like that's going to be my theme with all of these, is finally finishing them off.
Yeah, and it's really cool for like people who have never experienced the Final Fantasy, franchise. I mean, to be relaunching on Nintendo Switch is something that is great for people who have a Switch. So they can figure out what all the hype is about.
Mm-hmm. Even something like Final Fantasy VII, which, obviously a lot of people know about that game, and it was a big game back in the day. There's still whole new generations of gamers that have basically been born or started gaming since that game came out. So it's a great way to keep those titles alive. And like you said, there's a whole lot more players that can enjoy them now.
That's right.
Now, before we move on from that Nintendo Direct, is there anything else that popped out to you guys? We had, Asmodee had a lot of cool-looking new games coming up. There was Civilization 6, Diablo 3. What's some stuff that really popped off to you guys?
Well, I know we talked about Yoshi, but Yoshi's my guy. So when Yoshi came on, I kind of just blacked out and lost track of everything. But I'm excited about that, and probably Diablo 3. Diablo 3 is another one that I will be playing a lot of.
Yeah, I was going to say Diablo is definitely high on my list. And, Chris, when you mentioned Asmodee, that was one that surprisingly I was kind of more excited to get into. Just the idea of like digital board games on Nintendo Switch.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of makes perfect sense the more that I think about it. And, just thinking about buying all the physical pieces and stuff, it's kind of nice that it'll all be digitally there on one system.
Mm-hmm. And board games in general have had this big resurgence in recent years. A lot of people having, game nights and things now. So being able to just pull out the Nintendo Switch and have all those pieces basically together in one spot seems like that could work really well.
Totally.
Yep.
I have to say, for me too, I think the Asmodee was the biggest surprise moment for me, and actually elicited one of my loudest squeals when I saw Munchkin come up on the screen. Oh, that is one of my absolute favorite games. And I like to go camping in the summer and always bring board games along. And now being able to have all of these board games in my Nintendo Switch and take that one thing with me versus my pile of games that I have thrown in my car, I just love that idea. So I'm excited to be able to take board games more portably.
Absolutely. Like the tagline says, you can play games anywhere, anytime.
That's exactly right.
All right, well, moving on to our normal pros picks segment, let's talk briefly about games that we've actually been personally enjoying over the last month or so. Camille, want to start us off?
Sure, happy to. Well, one game that actually I surprised myself a little bit by picking up and really getting into was The Messenger.
Mm-hmm.
I am admittedly terrible at most Metroidvania style games, but something about the art style and the story and the lore behind this game really captured my attention. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll give it a try. Can't be that bad. And there are certainly some challenging platforming moments and battles, but my gosh, am I just loving this little ninja adventure. And I think my favorite part is actually some of the writing in the game.
Oh, it's hilarious.
I get frustrated when I die, but then I immediately laugh when my little buddy comes up and is giving me a hard time, heckling me for dying again. He's like, well, that works out for me too, because now you get to pay me more money for bringing you back. And just some little quirky dialogue like that I've really enjoyed. And I think it does a good job of incorporating some of your new move sets and the leveling up to introduce that complexity in a way that's manageable for somebody who maybe, like me, isn't normally as confident in their ability to play that style of game. I thought it felt very accessible to me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the first thing that attracted me to that game was the old school retro graphics, and then also the kind of Ninja Gaiden vibe I was getting off of it. Because back when I was a kid, I bought the original Ninja Gaiden for NES with like a bag of change I'd saved from my lunch money. So I was like on board. But then the more I played it, I realized that it really goes beyond what I'd even expected. I mean, I think people who are following that game are aware that, it starts out with the kind of the 8-bit NES style graphics. But then once you reach a certain point of the game, it goes from a standard side-scrolling action game into like more of a Metroid style game with a big, map that you can get to backtrack through and go unlock other areas, find new items, and then you can start time traveling to the future, which they represent by the 8-bit graphics then become 16-bit Super NES style graphics. So that's just a great hook, and like you said, it's a hilarious game, and I love all of the traversal mechanics you have. The cloud jump, where if you slash an enemy or an object in the air, it gives you a second jump before you land. The rope dart, where it's like a grappling hook. Even the shop guy says, I'm going to give you this. It's called a rope dart, but you're just going to call it a grappling hook, aren't you? And then the wingsuit, where you can kind of glide. So it took me, I actually did beat the game and was so hooked by it that I went back and found all of the collectible stuff, and it took me about 15 hours, and some of it gets really hard, but it was well worth it, in my opinion. All right, Kirk, well, what have you been playing lately?
Oh, gosh, a little bit of everything, as you know, but especially on the indie front, I have to kind of get the games early and play on the dev kit, and one game that has really stuck with me for probably over a year now, maybe a little bit under a year, is Dead Cells. I started playing this game on my dev kit before, release, just to kind of check out builds and see how everything was going. And then after the game shipped, I couldn't put it down. So I had got the game at retail, right, just like everyone else. And I've got my 3 runes already, but I played the entire game over again. I just made it to the last level the other night, and I died. But I kind of made it there by accident and didn't feel like I earned it. So it's just one of the games that I pick up almost every day and really kind of get through it and get the weapons. It's just one of those games that's just built to play over and over and over.
Yeah, it's a great game for Nintendo Switch in handheld mode, because it really is that, if you've got a few minutes, you can pick it up, make a quick run, grab as many cells as you can, hopefully upgrade a couple of things or unlock a couple of things. And then, your play session can end right there, or you can just keep looping it over and over again.
Right.
Trying to get ultimately, I guess, strong enough to give yourself a good shot against the last boss. I've played it a few hours. I feel like I'm still not that far into it. I haven't unlocked that much stuff, but it continues to be a game that I keep going back to.
Yeah, it's really got me. I mean, I usually don't play a game for longer than like 5 or 6 months, but that one's got me. Yeah. So, yeah.
I remember trying to steal your work Nintendo Switch a couple times to try and play it before release.
Yeah.
Until I finally got my own retail copy.
That's right.
Well, Vince, other than playing that copy of Dead Cells, what else have you been playing this month?
Oh, man. First that comes top of mind is probably the Mega Man 11 demo, which I've been just playing over and over and over to really master it in time for the main game. And I'll tell you, even though the double gear system is really helpful, for folks that don't know, it's kind of a new system they introduced with Mega Man 11 that, can help sort of slow down the pace of time. There are some areas in just the demo that, you essentially need it to get through. So, it just gave me a pretty good taste of what to expect in the final release. But yeah, it's definitely, as a legacy Mega Man fan, I mean, it's going to be very challenging, I can tell.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I've played through that demo at least half a dozen times,
Yep.
And it starts out. I was determined to only play it on normal mode, which is the hardest difficulty I think they have in the demo. But it starts off, when you first encounter enemies or you first encounter some of those falling blocks and you don't quite know the patterns yet, it can be really tricky.
Yep.
But the more you kind of play it and learn it, now I'm at the point where I can zip through the whole thing on 1 or 2 lives, and so I feel like the difficulty curve is just right for me. I expect a challenge with Mega Man, but of course I never wanted to be too frustrating. So it's striking a really good balance for me so far.
Yeah, I died a lot at that mid-boss with like the carousel kind of rotation.
Yeah.
But definitely, to your point, Chris, getting kind of used to that cadence and that new mechanic, it started to feel really good. Yeah.
Absolutely, and it helps too to turn on in the options screen before you start playing the rapid fire. You can set that to a different button that's usually unused, and you just shoot off a really quick burst of your shots, and that, especially with that mid-boss, helps a lot. So I was kind of relying on that for my initial playthroughs a lot, and then I started challenging myself to play through it without that turned on. But if that's an option in the full game, I think I'm definitely going to use it.
For sure, yeah.
Great. Well, for me, mostly like Camille, I've been playing the Messenger. I've also started building my pieces for my Nintendo Labo vehicle kit, which looks like it's going to be really great, but I'll have to give an update on that next month since I'm just getting started. Let's move on to the Warp Zone quiz. Now, for people that don't know, we have this quiz every month. I'm going to provide some hints, and you're going to use the hints to guess games that came out 10, 20, and 30 years ago. It can be pretty tricky, can be pretty challenging, but I think it's fun in the end. So, you guys ready?
Got to sit up in my chair for this one.
Yep.
She's sitting up straight.
Do my best.
Yep.
You guys sitting up straight over there?
Absolutely.
Is there
All
like
right.
a buzzer or something that we...
Yeah.
No buzzer, just speak out. If you think you know the answer, just holler it out. But wait till I deliver all the hints, please. All right, so game number 1 came out 10 years ago, September 2008. Here are the clues. This Wii game was published by Nintendo and developed by Goodfeel, who went on to make Yoshi's Woolly World. And it brought a long-running platform action series to a home console for the first time. It had colorful 2D graphics and encouraged players to use motion controls to shake it. Any guesses?
Shake It.
Close?
I'm going to add Wario Land.
Shake It.
Nice. So is that a PDR team answer?
Yes.
Wario Land Shake It is the correct response. They're double teaming
Teamwork.
up on you.
That's I feel at a disadvantage here.
We're high-fiving.
That was a busy month, actually, by the way, 10 years ago in September. We also had Kirby Superstar Ultra, Mega Man 9, and DeBlob for Wii, among plenty of other games.
DeBlob.
The Blob, yes.
Yeah.
Classic.
Which I think it came out again recently for Nintendo Switch.
Yep.
All right, 20 years ago, September 1998 now. Here are the clues. Nintendo published this RPG for Game Boy in which a kid travels far and wide to build a collection while finding time to go to the gym. Any guesses?
It's got to be Pokemon. Red, Blue.
That's right.
Wow.
And this
Nice.
blew my mind when I realized it. 20 years ago in the U.S., Pokemon Red version and Pokemon Blue version.
Yeah, for a second I was like, is that right? Oh, yep, I am that old.
I was gonna say, I remember exactly where I was when one of my best friends showed me Pokemon Red on the playground in elementary school.
Wow. I don't think I was born yet, but yeah, that sounds familiar.
So the question is, were you guys red or blue?
I had both red and blue.
Team Blue here.
I was
Team
red.
blue.
Oh, go Blastoise.
I guess I would pick yellow, but that came a little later.
Little older.
All right, 30 years ago, September 1988. The old days now. Here are the clues, and this is a tricky one. Vic Tokai published a side-scrolling action game for the NES based on a popular manga about an assassin named Duke Togo that had first-person maze sections, a story with international intrigue, and the subtitle of Top Secret Episode. Any guesses?
Ooh.
This is a deep cut. No shame if you don't know this one.
I'm at a loss.
All right, I'm just going to spill the beans here. It is Golgo 13 Top Secret Episode.
Oof.
Must have missed that when I was 1 year old.
Before I was born, yeah.
I don't know.
Helps to be old like me in the Warp Zone quiz.
Well, it's not on my bedtime playtime list.
Yeah, no, strangely, this I don't remember this game getting a lot of publicity when it came out, but it ended up being a regular favorite in Nintendo Power Magazine on the players' like top picks list. And that's how I first noticed it as a kid who, maybe teenager. Unfortunately, I like to say I was a kid when I read First Nintendo Power, but no, I was probably a little older than that. So yeah, that's it. That's pretty good. I think 2 out of 3 is not bad at all, especially when the first one, like I said, was more of a deep cut. So moving on to Players Pulse, we went on to Twitter and asked you guys to let us know which games you've been enjoying in the new NES Nintendo Switch Online collection. That's something I've been spending a lot of time with lately because, obviously I talk about old NES games all the time. That's really my thing. And I was really pleasantly surprised to find out that not only did it have, all these 20 great games, right at the launch of Nintendo Switch Online with more on the way, but just the interface itself of selecting the games was very snappy, very fast. I really liked how you could rearrange all of the order of the games and even pin some up to the top to be shown extra big if they're your favorites. You can even press the X button on any of these games and get an information screen that pops up and kind of tells you about the games. And I noticed a little detail where it even shows you how long you've been playing that particular game. And then, you can play these games online with friends. You can even have a little, if I'm watching you play Super Mario Brothers, Camille, I can have a little hand that points, hey, go here, and then make my little hands clap or whatever when you find the secret. So I just thought I've been having a blast with that. And I've seen a lot of other people online that have been having fun with those games as well. So that's why I wanted to go out and, ask listeners what they've been enjoying. And the first response comes from Chicken Nugget, who says, I've never played ice hockey, and boy, was it fun. And I couldn't agree more. That's a game I actually played back in the day. A great arcade sports game where you choose kind of the size of your players. Do you want them to be small and fast or big and able to check you against the boards? So I thought that's a great pick also because it's a great one for multiplayer, which is kind of what NES Nintendo Switch Online is all about. Did any of you guys remember that game, or am I the only one here old enough to have played it?
Oh yeah, yes, I love that game, and I'm still looking for that type of perfect hockey game for the Switch. So all indies who are listening, please, we need an awesome arcade hockey game.
Yeah, I love my sports sims, but I think something we don't have as much of these days is the old, very video gamey sports video games.
Right.
Where you didn't necessarily have to know all of the real rules for a sport. You could kind of just enjoy it in more of a arcade way, I think. Great. Well, the next response came from Louis1247, who says, playing Super Mario Bros. 3 is super fun. I spent at least half an hour looking for secrets. The game brings me back to when I got an NES, which wasn't until 2006, not back when it came out in 85. I still play on the NES to this day and now on Nintendo Switch Online. Obviously, Super Mario Bros. 3, I think, is arguably the star of the initial lineup. That game is one of the best platformers ever made.
It's definitely the first game I gravitated towards and played when the service launched, and just the music right from the start brings me right back to my childhood, and I just love that. It's so special. I'm glad other people are getting to experience that as well. Yeah, especially if maybe you came on board with Nintendo Switch and you really enjoyed Super Mario Odyssey, and you get to go back and make sure you don't miss some of the other great games in the Super Mario series. And the only drawback I would say that game had back in the day is there was no save function. So if you can imagine a Super Mario Brothers game where it's very long, very expansive, tons of levels, you go from world to world, but if you hit that power button, you had to start back from the beginning again. But now on Nintendo Switch, you have suspend points, so you can save anywhere, anytime. So it just makes the game even better than it ever was. Probably makes parenting a lot easier too, I would imagine, for you.
Yeah, imagine if you're trying to get your kid to come to dinner and you're like, just save it. And he's like, it's Super Mario Brothers 3. I'm going to be here for another 7 days at least.
Right.
It's like, Mom, I meant to to leave the console on overnight. Do not touch the power button, please.
Yeah. Or just fearing power outages. Oh, God. All right, so Cop Dog said, I can't stop playing Dr. Mario, which is another great, I think, 2-player game in the collection so far. And has one of the catchiest theme songs, the one called Fever. So I'm not going to embarrass myself singing it here, but I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. I love that song. I love that game. Steven, who I appreciate for having a much more normal name than Cop Dog or Chicken Nugget, says his pick is Yoshi. He says, I haven't played this puzzle game since I was little when I had it for Game Boy, and it feels good being able to play it again for the first time in years. And I think this game is probably a hidden gem for a lot of people. I don't know that as many people are aware of this game as some of the others, but actually it was Yoshi's first headlining game, before Yoshi's Island. I think several years before Yoshi's Island. So another great puzzle game.
No arguments from me because, I'm a Yoshi guy.
That's right. If we find out nothing else about you, this podcast, is that you are definitely a Yoshi guy.
That's right.
From day one, though, Kirk, you were playing the puzzle.
Yep.
Yoshi. Oh, wow.
Love it.
Yeah, and then we've got from Nick. He says this is his first time playing any NES game. River City Ransom is adorable, and ice hockey is really fun.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, that just underscores what we were saying earlier. It's great that people get a chance to go back and try these games. And River City Ransom is another great 2-player co-op title. Gotta love it when you punch a bully in that game in the gut and he just says barf.
And whoever curated the list of launch titles for this is a genius because there's a nice sampling of everything for everyone. So
yeah, it is a nice
really
mix
well
of
done.
single player and multiplayer, and also the big name games, and also some hidden gems that maybe you missed. The last one here comes from Elias Roa. Actually, Elias Roa and Snaz, I'm going to guess is the way you pronounce that. Elias says, Mario Brothers reminded me of the time I played it in an arcade with my friend, and I was getting a better score than him while we worked together to defeat those Koopas and Crabs, getting coins and beating levels. And then Snaz adds, playing the original Mario Brothers has been a blast. I never got very far as a kid, but now I'm already about 60 levels in. Haven't gone for a maximum score run yet, but I'm super excited to beat the game for the first time in my life. Now, I wasn't aware of this before until Snaz mentioned it, but yeah, the original Mario Brothers apparently has 99 levels. I didn't know it had an ending. I mean, technically, you get to level 99. I think it loops back to what's called phase 0, level 0. But now all of a sudden, I think maybe I've got something to shoot for here, especially with suspend points helping me out, maybe.
Got to reach for the stars.
Never give up, right? All right, so I don't know if you guys have had a chance to play certainly all 20 of the launch games so far, but what's the one game if you had to pick one that pops off to you the most? That I don't know if you've spent the most time playing it already, or just the game that you can't wait to get to.
For me, it's probably going to be Legend of Zelda.
A classic.
Yes, a total classic, and I kind of want to jump back in and start from the beginning where it all started and kind of just see all of the stories and because I've played the one on Switch, the one that launched with Switch, and I want to kind of go back, do a rewind. So looking forward to doing that.
It is interesting playing that after The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild because in a lot of ways Breath of the Wild went back to some of the elements of that original formula. So it's kind of fun seeing it now.
That's right.
Yeah, my friends and I have been on a little bit of a beat 'em up take. So in addition to like the Capcom beat 'em up bundle, we've been pretty into Double Dragon.
Oh yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, just that and River City Ransom, as you mentioned, are kind of top on my list.
Yeah, those are two classic beat 'em ups for sure.
Well, I know I said Super Mario Brothers 3. That's certainly one of my all-time favorites, but I think I'm going to say Yoshi. That was a game that I think just given the time the NES came out, I was so young, and Super Nintendo was actually my first console, so I want to go back and see Yoshi's origin story and get to experience that for the first time.
Yeah, we'll see his roots. For me, there's so many great games, but I would say, since we haven't mentioned it yet, I'm going to pick Pro Wrestling. That's a game that wasn't available on any previous virtual console service or any platform really since its original release on the NES. And I just remember when that game first came out, I was a big wrestling fan back then. And this game had you could jump off the top rope, you could use special moves, you could even throw someone outside of the ring and then run from the inside and jump over the ropes and land on them on the outside. Just all this crazy stuff you could do that I'd never seen in a video game before. And actually, my best friend at the time somehow talked me into letting him borrow it the day that I got it. So, and I just spent the whole night like freaking out, like what if something happens to this game before I get a chance to really dig into it. So I was really happy to be able to play that game again and just see it come back. You know, it's nice to see that these games haven't kind of been forgotten and that new people get to experience them as well. Now we're going to jump to our last segment, which is our fall game guide. Now, there's a lot to go over here. There's a lot of games coming out as we head into the holidays, and wanted to look at some of the key titles and make sure that none of these slip between the cracks. I think everybody's aware of certain games. We're going to make sure you're aware of all of the big titles. And I'm just going to go through this list in kind of the order that they're currently scheduled for release. Starting with Fortnite Season 6 on the 27th, which should be hitting just about the same time as this episode. I still need to get good at Fortnite, but hey, what better jumping on point than a brand new season?
We'll practice together, Chris.
You gonna carry me? You gonna keep me from getting killed?
Oh, I don't know if you want me to be the one carrying you.
Well, Kirk and I can definitely help out. Maybe we can squad up together and jump in.
All right, great. As long as you guys don't mind me dragging down your win percentage a little bit.
It's all good.
Yeah. So I don't think we really know much at this point. It's funny because we're recording this obviously before this new season comes out. I don't think we've said too much about what's actually going to be included. So we'll just look forward to that and just picture us at the moment that this podcast hits, all teaming up and doing great. And it turns out, ironically, that I was the best in our squad, and you can just believe that story.
Well, when I think Victory Royale, I think Chris Slate.
Yeah, well, synonymous. All right, next up is, we touched on this already, but also on the same day, the 27th, Towerfall. Again, from the developers of Celeste. We'll include Madeline and Badeline from that game, and I just can't wait to play this one. I mean, anything this guy makes from now on, or this team, I'm on board for after Celeste.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. People are really looking forward to it, and having those two characters, Madeline and Badeline, in there, it just it's a special nod to people who know about Celeste on Switch.
Mm-hmm. Then on a day later, on the 28th, I believe we have FIFA 19. It's great to get the new version here, and as I understand it, Vince, there's a new mode. Can you tell us anything about that? I think it's FIFA Ultimate Team.
Yeah, FIFA Ultimate Team, I believe, was in the past versions, but I know it's more of it's the most popular mode for FIFA.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the fantasy sort of version where you're sort of picking and creating your ultimate team essentially. And I know that's where I'll be spending my time in FIFA, is really just kind of me exactly perfecting that team, that lineup, and being honestly the best team in the league. Yeah, the big addition that one of the bigger ones I'm excited about is the addition of online friendlies. So now you can actually kind of matchmake with your Nintendo Switch friends versus having to, I think last year there was a little bit more you had to do, but now you just jump in and you can play instantly with your Nintendo
That's
friends.
Great. All right, looking forward to that. Also on the same day, the 28th, we've got Dragon Ball Fighter Z. Now, this is a game that already has become a tournament favorite on other platforms. I believe it was big at EVO this year, and has very, as you would expect from Dragon Ball, a very kind of, explosive kind of anime presentation. So looking forward to getting my, hands in that one a little bit, seeing if I can hang with some of the people who have, I've said this on the show before, but I'm not the world's best fighting game player, but I do enjoy playing them. So I'm hoping I can, get good.
Yeah, I think this one was the biggest fighting game at EVO this year. So definitely some eyeballs on it.
And it's not that old of a game. That really just stormed out of a gate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally a big Dragon Ball fan, and the developers did such a good job really keeping it tied to kind of that franchise, and all the moves are, really true to the anime. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge fighting game player, but it's one of the games that I just sit there and love to watch. It's just like watching a cartoon. It's so awesome.
Yeah. I remember, in the old days, you'd look at a game and you look at the graphics and you'd say, oh, this almost looks like a cartoon. It's like, no, that in hindsight, that looked like a video game. These games look like cartoons.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to October on the 2nd, Mega Man 11. Vince, like we were talking about before, I can't wait for this game. I actually pre-ordered the Amiibo edition because it combines two of my favorite things, Mega Man and Amiibo. Apparently scanning the Amiibo can get you some helpful items like E-Tanks and things like that. So not that I'll admit it maybe the day after, but I might, if I get in a tight spot against one of these robot bosses, I might scan an Amiibo, see what happens.
Oh, there's no shame in asking for help.
That's right.
All right, then on October 5th, we've got Super Mario Party.
Yes.
That is going to be a big one. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to the return of Super Mario Party on Nintendo Switch. And it's looking like it's going to be a big one with 80 brand new mini games. You can play a lot of these mini games online. Toad's Rec Room, which people saw in the original reveal trailer, which has like mini baseball game, battle with tanks, goofy little banana game. I'm not quite sure how it works yet. But just this idea that you can put these multiple Nintendo Switch systems down, you can put two systems down on a table, and kind of the screen will carry over from one Switch to the next. So you can fight across two different spaces there, which just sounds like some crazy, magical thing. But when you see it in action, you're like, yeah, it works.
It's pretty wild to see, like in the ad that they released for this. I can't wait to see it in action, the screens joining. It's like Switch magic. It's weird.
I never thought I would enjoy matching pictures of bananas or that it could feel so satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be another, like we were talking about with the resurgence of board games. I think, Super Mario Party has always been a pretty popular series, but I think maybe now more than ever, people are going to be up for that kind of experience, that kind of, let's all get together and play this. Then on October 9th, a very different kind of experience, Mark of the Ninja Remastered, which, we talked to someone from the team behind this game in an earlier episode of the podcast, and I've been looking forward to that game ever since, just asking Vince every week, when's this game going to come out? And it's finally coming, and it's coming in just a few short days. And I love this idea. I've played a lot of stealth games in the past. Usually they're more 3D style stealth games. I love the idea of a side-scrolling stealth game. You can get through the whole thing if you want without having to actually fight anyone, or you can, seek out those types of encounters. And this is another one of those games, like you guys were talking about earlier, that is a very kind of popular title, is more of a legendary indie title, and now we get to see it on Nintendo Switch, which is great.
Yeah, we're really happy that Clay decided to bring the game over. We've been working very closely with them on the launch, and it looks and plays great. The fans are going to love it, and you're going to love it.
Well, I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, just fully remastered visuals, the audio. Honestly, I know Corey during that podcast, Chris, he mentioned to you a little bit about that, but just playing an earlier version of the game on my work Switch, yeah, it is just so meticulously well created, and just going from like location to location and hearing the subtle nods and kind of like the guard's footsteps and how different that is in like another room. It's just really well done.
All right. Well, those few short days just got a little bit longer. It's going to be hard to wait. On October 12th, we've got The World Ends With You Final Remix. This is going to include a new story segment called The New Day with a remixed map of Shibuya, which is Shibuya is a real part of Tokyo. I don't think it probably has monsters in quite the same scenarios that appear in this game, but I always found that very interesting because I've actually been there and you can kind of see some recognizable spots in the game. But for whatever reason, being hyper aware of this game and how popular it is, I never played the original Nintendo DS version more than a few minutes. But I always thought it looked really interesting. So this is another, a situation where Nintendo Switch has given me the opportunity to go back and correct a past wrong by finally playing this game.
Well, and something about this game, you mentioned the stunning visuals, but the soundtrack is something that always stuck with me back when I played the original game, and I love seeing it now on Nintendo Switch. And to your point about Shibuya and monsters, there are several games now that have depicted that. So I start to wonder, maybe there's something to that. Next time we're in Japan, we should have a closer look around and see what's actually going on.
All right,
seems to be a common theme.
Something dark and sinister going on over there. I think Nintendo should fly us to Shibuya so we can get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Free trip.
I think Reggie'd sign off on that.
Yeah, I think it's all good. Done. On October 12th, Luigi's Mansion for Nintendo 3DS. And I got to say that as much as I was excited to play through this game again, that just went through the roof with the announcement of Luigi's Mansion 3 for Nintendo Switch. When the first one launched alongside Nintendo GameCube, I remember back in the day, some people were like, well, where is, the more traditional Super Mario Brothers game, that we've seen past systems launch with. In fact, I think that might have been the first system in the U.S. that didn't launch with a Super Mario game, rather. But it was great. It was. I think if anyone overlooked it for that reason, then do yourself a favor and check this game out now, because it is just one big fun puzzle box of rooms to explore and ghosts to catch. And now we've seen that we announced that there's a 2-player functionality that's been added to this version, as well as a gallery battle mode where you can challenge the bosses. And you can also tap compatible amiibo to reveal where Boos are hiding, or heal Luigi when he talks to Toad, and some more helpful things like that. So, it's looking like this is going to be the best version of a game that was great from the beginning. Did you guys try this game back in the GameCube era? Are you going to be trying it for the first time on Nintendo 3DS?
This is actually one of my very favorite GameCube titles, and one that I played several times over. I just, again, I, for some reason, always really connected with Luigi as a character. He felt like my spirit animal almost. And I like the humor in this game a lot. It's not scary. For someone like me who sometimes feels left out of conversations around this time of year, there are a lot of spooky things going on. This makes ghosts more approachable and a little less terrifying. There are a lot of quirky, silly little moments that I really enjoy.
Yeah, it's not scary. It's a little spooky, like a fun, spooky haunted house.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Camille. This is one of my favorite GameCube games, and probably one of the ones that really defined that era for me. And yeah, it kind of goes back to something that I didn't on paper think that I would really like, but when I played it, it was just the perfect blend of sort of, quirky, a little scary. The boss fights definitely got my blood pumping a little bit, but it was overall very cute. And yeah, like I said, definitely one of my standouts for GameCube era.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to play it on 3DS.
Yeah, it's great to see that game come back. And it'll be a great primer, like we said, for Luigi's Mansion 3 next year. Now, on October 16th, we have Starlink Battle for Atlas. And this went from a game that was announced, I think, a couple E3s ago that I was only just learning about, to now a game that I absolutely can't wait to play. And I think even without the addition of the Star Fox characters, it was starting to look very interesting. But you've put Star Fox in there, and now we've learned that Wolf is in there as well, and the whole Star Fox team is going to make an appearance. That just looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, to me, the Star Fox stuff, that is really the icing on the cake. And Chris, to your point, I'm also excited just to really dig into the world of Starlink. I don't know much about kind of the exploration or how deep it really goes, like I know Ubisoft has said. So, outside of the stuff we've seen, like the battles, really curious how deep this one goes.
Sorry, I was lucky enough to play it at PAX West, and I had a blast with it. It's gorgeous too. With the ship battle with the boss, it was really cool.
Yeah, and then you actually get a physical R-Wing that you can play with, that, and somehow by rearranging the parts on the ship, and this is true of all the different kind of ships that you can get for the game, then it accurately kind of replicates those modifications in the game, and it changes the way that you actually play with your vehicles. So that's something to look forward to. And the amiibo collector in me is just lit up when I saw that giant, R-Wing. Gotta have that. Then also on the same day, October 16th, Lego DC Supervillains. Obviously, the Lego games, have continued to be very popular, but this is the first time I can remember seeing one that centers on the villains. And there's if you look at the DC cast of villains, there's a lot there to play with. And actually, I think you create and play as an all-new supervillain, and it's a very open-world game in which, from what I understand, the Justice League has disappeared. So that seems like the perfect time for the villains to come out and have some fun.
Yeah, we always have a blast with Lego titles. And yeah, Chris, to your point, I don't think we've really seen many sort of titles like this where you're in the driver's seat as a villain and to create your own villain and really have your own story fighting against, Superman and some of these really well-known DC heroes. It should be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Now, next up on October 19th is the game that I'm simultaneously looking forward to and a little bit afraid of, and that's Dark Souls Remastered. Again, this is my opportunity to kind of correct my own timeline and play a series that is very popular and I just haven't had a chance to try yet. But from what I understand, these games are a lot of fun, but also very, very challenging.
Yes. Dark Souls and Kirk don't have a good history. So I chose to break up with Mr. Dark Souls a while back.
Hey, man, you just got to spend some time with Mr. Dark Souls, and it'll treat you right.
All right. Well, I'll keep that in mind as I...
It's my personal Halloween title. So for the rest of October, I will be in the world of Dark Souls.
That is a good way to get ready for Halloween.
Yes.
All right. On October 23rd, we've got Just Dance 2019, 40 new songs. I think with the game you get 1 month of Just Dance Unlimited, which has tons more songs. And I may or may not play this game with my kids, and there may or may not be footage of me, shaking my groove thing in a way that will never be publicly revealed.
We're gonna have to do some investigating on that, I think.
Yes,
please.
Yeah, it's just it's the kind of the experience I think people really have come to love, and it's just a goofy break for me in between some of my more serious gamer games.
Oh, I think absolutely, and no matter what age you are, too, right? I've had people over who are my age and just random Friday night danced for a couple of hours, but then I've also gone over to my baby cousin's house and played it with them and danced to Moana songs. So it's just another really fun, cooperative / competitive experience.
Absolutely. Now, Kirk, you'd mentioned to me one last game coming out in October. I don't think we have a specific date for it, though, called Zarvot. What can you tell us about that game?
Yes, Zarvot. That was in our Nindies Summer Showcase. And it's single player or up to 4 players. It's a shooter, up to 4 players, it's a competitive shooter game. But single player is really interesting because there's a story about these 2 cubes that are looking for their friend. It's a really wacky title, and it's got the most amazing graphics I've seen in a while. It's like a photoreal kind of a background. It's really cool. It's made by Snow Hydra is the name of the developer, another indie. And I look for this one. It's going to be really cool.
That's great. Well, you had me at wacky, so I'll definitely check it out.
Yes. And there's another title, speaking of wacky, it's called Marble It Up. And you actually have to say it like that. You have to say, marble it up. And it's actually really cool. It's a marble game. You're rolling the marble, and it's got amazing visuals, and it's just a blast to play. And I just can't, it's really hard to explain. You're controlling a marble and rolling around environments, and there's different gravity, and I've been having a blast with it. So look for that as well.
I think that one's coming out on the 28th of September, right?
Yes.
Really soon.
The 28th or 29th. Yes.
Great. Well, I'm going to hit you up then for the first game of November, which you also told me about, Transistor.
Oh, yes. This developer, Supergiant, is fantastic. Just a great partner, and they have amazing games. And their previous games, Bastion, and it's just been a joy to work with them, and they make great just almost art. So, yes, that's another game that you should definitely pick up.
Cool. Definitely be looking out for that then. And then the very next day, on November 2nd, we have Diablo 3 Eternal Collection. Now, I'm really looking forward to not only diving back into Diablo 3, but getting that Ganondorf armor that I've seen in the trailer.
Oh yeah, definitely. That is one of my bigger drivers back to the game as well. And for someone that's played a lot of Diablo rather, it's cool that we have seasons in the Nintendo Switch version as well. So it really will feel like you're jumping in sort of a perfect time to get in, and it feels fresh.
Cool.
Yeah, and Vince and I can sit around at lunch and play with 2 other people on our Switches and just kind of go and dungeon crawl. It'll be a blast.
As long as I roll with the Ganondorf armor, yeah,
yes,
we're cool.
You may have the Ganondorf armor.
Awesome.
Great. Well, and then on November 6th, we've got World of Final Fantasy Maxima. Vince, another Final Fantasy title headed your way.
Yeah, I'm gonna try not to be biased here and say it's a pretty good one to pick up. I played the original one on other platforms, and it's definitely one of the best entrances into Final Fantasy if you're a newcomer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit different in terms of the play style, but it's turn-based, very cute, pretty easy to pick up. So highly recommend, especially for the folks that are not as familiar with the franchise.
Those little chibi Final Fantasy characters, I mean, really, it does not get much better than that. They're so darn cute.
Yeah. I think the only thing cuter is when they
Exactly.
take a chocobo, which is already pretty cute, and make like a chibi chocobo.
Sold.
It's game over.
All right, now, Camille, on the November 16th, there's a game coming out. I'm not sure you've heard about it. It's actually 2 games. They have weird to pronounce titles, but I'm going to give it a shot here. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. Have you heard anything about these games?
You know, I think my brother was talking about something about Eevee the other day. Yeah.
Eevee. Interesting.
No, yeah, the Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee are without a doubt my most anticipated games of the year. I am personally Team Eevee, but I gotta give some love to my boy Pikachu as well, or girl Pikachu, depending on the tale. These 2 games, we talked about Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue earlier in our trivia, and for me as a kid, that playing in the Kanto region for the first time was one of the most special experiences for me. And now seeing it brought to life in this whole new way on Nintendo Switch in Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, it actually, you guys can laugh if you want, brought tears to my eyes the first time I saw it, because this was everything that I had imagined when I was a kid that the Kanto region really looked like. And now getting to play with the Pokeball Plus controller too, you really do feel like a Pokemon trainer. And when you make the throwing motion with the controller and then getting to hear and feel the Pokemon that you just caught inside of it and take it out with you in the real world is so incredibly cool. And, I think I saw something else related to Pokemon earlier this week. Some of you listeners out there, if you're Pokemon Go players, may have seen a strange-looking Pokemon pop up in your game over the past week. And we actually just revealed his name is Meltan, according to Professor Oak and Professor Willow. Newly discovered Pokemon. We haven't shared or been able to find out much information about it yet, but something tells me it might have something to do with Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. So stay tuned for more on that guy.
Mysterious. Well, I have to say, Eevee's cute, but I'm going to be Team Pikachu just to balance things out here. And this is a game that I'm really looking forward to because, I say this all the time, but, I have a young son who's really become a massive video game player and a huge Nintendo fan. And this is perfect for us to play together. I mean, it's got 2-player now, which is, I think, a first for a Pokemon RPG style game. And the idea also that he really loved playing Pokemon Go with me. And so the idea that now it has a little bit of that crossover and we can also use the Pokeball Plus the way that we do is just so fun. And by the way, I just love holding the Pokeball Plus. It's just the idea that you're holding an actual Pokeball and then you're making things happen with it is another level of like crazy magic.
It's really neat. I played with it a little bit at PAX West, and I was like, this is really cool. The ball was something that, like, once you have it in your hand and you're actually interacting with it, it's like, wow, okay. Yeah, you feel like a trainer.
It's more mind-blowing to me that you can play the whole game one hand with just the Pokeball. And I don't know. Oh, first of all, sorry, Team Pikachu right here. And Camille, I'll just echo you. I got some hardcore goosebumps when this was really announced, and having started from Red and Blue back in the day, this is exactly what I also wanted to see growing up. And being able to have your companion Pokemon, being able to ride some of these larger Pokemon, it's going to be a blast. It's really the culmination in my mind of what the Kanto region is.
Well, and for those of us who always wanted to style our Pokemon's hair, you can now do that too. Give your Pikachu bangs if you'd like.
It's a game changer.
Yeah, it's a total game changer.
That's going to be fun. All right, now November 16th, Civilization 6. Vince, I know this is one that you're looking forward to.
Totally, yeah. I've been playing a lot of this back at the office, so I'm excited really to get this in front of the world. And On TV it looks beautiful, but for me personally, being able to play on handheld and kind of, have controls, of course the traditional on Joy-Con, but also using the touch controls is really nice. And for folks that don't know, Civilization 6 is really sort of a historic franchise, and it's a really deep strategy game. And the way that 2K, the publisher, has created this for Nintendo Switch, it really just makes sense.
It's really not a traditional port as we know traditional ports. It's really an adaptation to the platform for the franchise, and they nailed it. So, like as Vince said, we've been playing it around the office, and it's going to surprise and delight a lot of people.
I would imagine that this kind of game is a pretty good fit for the portable nature of Nintendo Switch, the idea that it's a home console you can take on the go. And this seems like the kind of game you'd want to dip into, whenever you've got a few spare minutes, maybe.
Absolutely. Some of these wars or battles will take a long time, so being able to sort of, even just press the sleep button and take it wherever is really, really going to be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Then on November 20th, this is our last game for November we have listed here, Warframe, which I don't know too much about. Who can maybe tell me a little bit more about that game?
Yeah, I don't know too much, not having not played it personally, but I know that it's very much, it's a free-to-play game. You essentially have these mechs or suits, these warframes that you go into, and you go into battle and you're fighting these kind of alien things. But essentially it's kind of a co-op based third-person shooter, I would say, right, Kirk?
Yeah, that's very accurate.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. And hey, you can't beat, a free-to-play game. So I'll definitely be checking that one out. Then December, we just have a couple listed here. And I'm going to give this a shot and see if I can actually pronounce this correctly. Carcassonne. Is that right?
Carcassonne, yeah.
Yep. It is the first of many from Asmodee Digital that'll be coming. And I believe this is really, really popular in Europe and something that I have not played personally, but just seeing some of the sentiments online of how excited people are, really, that's kind of the kickoff point for me in terms of what really made me interested. And it looks really cool. You're essentially placing these tiles on the digital board. Kirk, do you know?
It's a super popular board game.
Yeah.
That's where it comes out of. And I mean, board gamers, it's like board gamers, what ABC. It's like every board gamer has this game. And it's a great adaptation from what I understand is pretty much all I've known about it. I haven't actually gotten hands-on with it yet. So, but I know that from what I've heard internally is that it's another great adaptation of a board game.
Well, I certainly hear a lot of people talking about that one. So looking forward to checking it out. And then our final game on our list is December the 7th, the day before my birthday. And I can't think of a better birthday present than Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Now, we spent the entire episode pretty much last month talking about this game, so I don't want to, kind of tread the same discussion here. So I'm just going to ask for each of you, who's going to be your main character at this point? Who are you looking forward to? If you were playing the game today, who do you start with? Who do you think you're going to start sinking a lot of time into practicing with?
You ask the tough questions, Chris. If you'd asked me this a couple weeks ago, I definitely would have said Inkling Girl. Been playing a lot with her.
Ooh.
I had a chance over the weekend, actually, at our college tailgate tour that we kicked off to play a little bit more Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and I just love the Inkling moveset. It's very unique. But now, with Isabelle in the mix, I'm starting to question myself a little bit. I don't know. We'll have to see. It'll be a game time decision.
That's a tough one. And you haven't played as Isabelle yet, so.
I have not.
I, myself, am not fortunate enough to do all these wonderful things with Nintendo first-party games. So I haven't had hardly any hands-on with the game. I'm going to go old school, and I'm going to say I'm going to do a lot of things with Pac-Man.
Yeah, I think for me as well, I'm kind of the go-to from what I know. It'll be Ike for now until I really get an idea of what that meta looks like. But he's always been sort of my, my number one.
But thank you for telling us that it's coming December 7th because I had no idea.
Yeah. I think I've seen a few people talking about that.
Yeah. Wow, such a surprise.
For me, it's got to be Simon Belmont. I always love playing as Link, as Mario, Captain Falcon, and a few others. Little Mac, I'm probably going to try to play as those guys again. But I really want to try to get good with Simon Belmont because he's the most exciting newcomer to me so far because I just love the old Castlevania games. And I just love how he seems like a very unique character with the reach that he gets from his whip chain or chain whip. I forget what they call it. And so I really can't wait to play as him.
Well, I'm
That's
excited,
a really good call.
Excited to see Luigi avenge himself against Simon Belmont.
Yeah, but if they're fighting in Simon's like castle level, the Dracula's castle, Simon's gonna have a big advantage because I think Luigi will be too scared to stick around.
It's true, but he'll have the
vacuum.
Poltergeist.
That's true.
Never underestimate the power of the poltergeist.
yes.
Poltergeist. That's
Poltergeist,
right.
yeah.
That's right.
All right, well, all of you, thank you so much for coming on the show today, and thanks for sticking around for I think what seems like it's been an extra long episode. Again, Camille, Kirk, Vince, thanks so much for coming.
Oh, it was an awesome time.
Thank you so much
Thanks
for having us.
Thank you, Chris.
That's it for this episode of Nintendo Power Podcast. If you have any comments or questions you'd like us to consider answering on the show, you can email us at nintendopowerpodcast@noa.nintendo.com. Also, we always appreciate it if you can leave us a review, and be sure to subscribe so you can get new episodes as soon as they're ready. Thanks for listening, and keep playing with power.